Welcome to City 8 TV. I'm Executive Editor Michael Johnson. I'm joined now by Tim Kremer, the Executive Director of New York State School Boards Association. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
So we're near the end of the session, last couple of hours, possibly last couple of days. We'll still find out that too. I know you guys are very concerned about the property tax cap, which is not up this year, up next year, but is tied to rent regulations, so it's quite possibly going to get addressed. You have some proposals for changing that. What are they?
Oh, we've got several things. We have suggested that it needs to be tweaked. You know, there's been lots of proposals as to whether or not it should be permanent or extended for a period of time. We kind of think it's going to be de facto permanent. No one's going to see this thing go away. But there are some things that need to happen. For example, it doesn't accommodate growth in enrollment. If enrollment starts going up, it doesn't accommodate that in the calculation for the cap. Pilots, payment in lieu of taxes, which are things that officials use to incent people to come to their school district, come to their community, build, renovate, hire people. When those pilots come off that pilot status and come theoretically back on the tax rolls, this tax cap calculation doesn't accommodate that properly. There are several other things that we would tweak. Our biggest concern are probably threefold. One is there's a call to make this permanent. And we're very concerned. There hasn't been that much of it lately, but we're very concerned that if it is made permanent, that you're not going to be able to come back periodically and take a look at this thing, because economic conditions change. The state could all of a sudden go into the dumper, all of a sudden we're in what is known as a gap elimination adjustment, and here we go again. That would be horrible. The other thing that happens that's been really interesting is that the tax cap has had a huge impact on lowering the voter turnout during these May budget votes. Significant numbers have gone down, like 30% since the tax cap came in. Now that's one thing. Those budgets are still passing, all but two this year. But my school board elections are on that same ballot. So now we're having people elected out of very small margins.
And that's obviously a problem for you guys when you want to get more people involved in the process as far as electing school board members, so you have better say in the democracy that's going on in these districts and areas. Stepping back for 1 second though, would it be fair to say you think that the property tax cap is just too blunt of an instrument? That's why you want to have it reassessed kind of periodically so you can make sure there's small tweaks to address some of these smaller things that pop up with the instrument. But predominantly, you're not opposed to a tax cap to keeping spending lower.
Our main problem is the fact that if you want to exceed your tax levy limit or your tax cap has been formulated by the state, you need a super majority. You need to get 60% of the voters to pass that. We had 9 budget votes go down. All but 1 or 2 of them had more than 50%. They just didn't have the 60%. And even in these 9 that went back for a revote just yesterday, we had 7 pass. And those that had to go for an override, again, all but 2 passed. They had over 60%, but those 2 that didn't pass, they had 58%.
Wow.
These are tiny, poor districts that are going to really suffer, even though a majority of their people voted yes for this. So in other words, the minority wins, the majority doesn't. We believe that there should be a different way of, every vote should count. One vote, one person. That rule should be in place.
Another issue that you guys are dealing with, and that I guess the entirety of the school systems are dealing with now, is the implementation of teacher evaluations, part of the Common Core discussion. I know that the Assembly Education Chair, Kathy Nolan, and then also the former Senate Education Chair, also now the Majority Leader John Flanagan, have some bills out to make some amendments to this that was passed in the budget. I know you guys you like some things, you don't like some other things about both of these bills. Talk us through what you would like to see done on this, and talk about what you maybe don't like about Assemblywoman Nolan's bill and what you do like about Senator Flanagan's bill or don't like about Senator Flanagan's bill.
Well, first of all, I got to tell you, this has been going on now for 4 or 5 years. Yeah. We did teacher and principal evaluations for years and years and years before this has happened. And ever since this annual professional performance review process has gone into play, it's gone from bad to worse every year. And this year is the worst yet. We have a situation where we have now the tied to the budget.
Yeah.
Were these annual professional performance review law that said you have to renegotiate. The state education department has to come up with a new plan, and all these school districts are going to have to renegotiate one more time and do it by November 15th, or your state aid increase is going to be in jeopardy. We're going right down a rat hole that we've been down once before. We have tried to push back and say they can't do it that quickly. We need time to do this right, delink it from this state aid increase, and both the Flanagan bill and the Nolan bill are trying to provide more time. Only the Nolan bill delinks it from this state aid increase. Flanagan's bill does not. He has a couple other things in there that we do like. There is the way that they are trying to delink it is the fact that school districts who are trying to negotiate would say, we can't get this done, we have a hardship now, and we need more time. The regulations that were approved by the State Board of Regents say we're going to give you more time if you qualify for this hardship waiver. And the Nolan bill supports that. Unfortunately, the Flanagan bill does not. So we've got this at cross purposes. A couple other.
Well, before we get to the other points, I just wanted to go back to, obviously the extension is a key thing here. So, obviously you guys want more time. You want to push back the deadline of November. Right now it seems like there's going to be delays in a lot of these things. I mean, how much does this affect a school district as they're planning? I mean, they're clearly preparing for November. Right. And you have, Flanagan's bill that wants to push back to February, Kathy Nolan's bill that wants to push back a full year. They don't know what they're going to get. Yeah. So are you telling your school boards to be like, we have to go full board right now to try to get this done? Or do you guys tell them to wait and see what happens when it comes out of this?
I think you're going to have to at least plan on November 15th right now. Yes, indeed, the waiver was approved by the regs, or by the regions, yeah, saying we're going to give you 4 months if you can qualify for a hardship. But, right now, we don't know exactly what those hardship provisions are going to be. So until we have those laid out, exactly how to qualify for a hardship, I'm going to plan on November 15th. That means I have to be negotiating, I have to get ratification, I've got to get approval, I've got to get the training done all by November 15th, which is a very difficult thing to do during the summer months and into the fall. So this is going to be tough, and this is the third or fourth year in a row we've had to do something like this. Assume we do get the extension, the 4 months or so. That takes us out into the early part of next year. That would be helpful. And I know most districts are going to go for that, and we would like to go as far as we can. The Flanagan bill, I think, takes it to February 15. That gives us that extension. We have sought June 30th, and the Nolan bill takes it all the way to September 1, 2016. So we're all over the place. We need to get on one page for any amendments to be approved.
And I think the Flanagan bill being February 15th would mean that the education funding could still be linked to it because it's before the end of the budget cycle. Whereas, if you do the full extender, then you're gonna have to delink the education funding increases because the budget will be in the next budget cycle by that point. Then.
And the 15th of February, not great. Mm-hmm. Gives us a little more time. Some districts will successfully negotiate new APPRs in that period of time. But there will be some that are not able to do it in that period of time. And honestly, we're rushing this thing. We're trying to make this thing work. It's not a good model to begin with. I mean, I can't go into all of the measurements of student growth performance and observations, classroom observations. Very, very complicated. It really should be done right. It should be studied. Give us the time to do this right, delink it from state aid, and I think we can make this work, but it's going to be done in a kind of a hurried up and poorly designed fashion if we do it this fast.
Do you think there's a way that you could, amend it to say that there's a different kind of marker that schools have to hit to get the state aid? Because I think the concern is if you delink it from the state aid, then they're not going to do anything and they're going to delay the process. But if you say you have to do at least this much, maybe not the whole thing, was there anything that you could, any middle ground there? Where
it shouldn't be linked to state aid at all. This state aid was something that was in the budget, with what the districts that I represent went to their voters and said, we have a spending plan here, the state is going to spend X number of dollars in state aid for us, we need you to support the rest. We all said yes, all but 2 districts in the state, and now you're going to say, oh, by the way, unless you get this other thing in place, you might not get that increase. That's not fair.
Tim Kremer, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be watching this very closely, and we'll bring you back talking about more about this in the coming weeks and months, I'm sure.
Good, thank you.